So let's learn very briefly about the UML State Machine Diagram. So important entities in a software move from one state to another state. So say for example, if you open a bank account, that account can be suspended, then account can be, most of the times it is in force. You can close that account can be under scrutiny. So people move from entities in a system move from one state to another state. Similarly, so what we capture is basically the life cycle of the entity. For example, human beings also follow a linear life cycle that includes birth, infancy, childhood, adolescence, youth, middle age, old age, infirmity and death. This is linear, but in the software system, many business entities or many objects hop from one state to another. So while we need to do modeling on how this transition from one state to another happens. Like all the other UML diagrams, this UML State Machine Diagram has also got a notation and associated terms with that notation. What we capture, as I have told you, is transition between states. So important notation for the state machine diagram is the initial state. Multiple initial states are allowed. The final state or the final pseudo state, only one final pseudo state is allowed. Comment or the note. Decision. So decision is basically the gateway if it leads to more than one path. Then state, and then there is a composite state. So in a composite state there can be two states within a given state. And how do we prepare a state machine diagram? We prepare a state machine diagram by identifying the business entities to be modeled, identifying the various states, identifying the transition between the states, and identifying the permanent states.
A life insurance contract document called policy is issued when a completed proposal with all required documents is submitted to the underwriting team. The policy proposal form is routed through the branch operations to the underwriting team. With favorable acceptance condition, the proposal is converted into a policy. The policy is serviced by the policyholder by paying regular premiums on or before the premium due date. This keeps the policy in force or in continuation. In case the due premium remains unpaid beyond the due date, the policy is lapsed after a certain grace period. If the premium for a lapsed policy remains unpaid for long, the policy reaches the paid-up state. Both the lapsed or paid-up policy can be revived or reinstated when the policy holder pays all the outstanding premium installments along with applicable interest and policy revival charges. Personal health statement is also submitted as a declaration. Policy once revived becomes a regular policy. On completion of policy period or in the event of death of the insured, the policy gets terminated and the policy benefits are paid to the assignee or the nominee as the case may be. Now we will prepare the state machine diagram for this case study.
In the insurance system, insurance policy moves from one state to another. That's what has been documented in this case study. So as a business analyst, you have to first document or understand this movement, and once you have understood this movement, for the sake of clarity, you need to prepare what we call as the UML state machine model for the same case. So let's start this model, and we will start it right away. So to start preparing this model in Visio, and then I go to more shapes. Within more shapes I go to software and database, and then software, and within software I will choose this UML State Machine model. So you can see the UML State Machine model is now open, and the State Machine model is typically a horizontal model. So what I will do, I will just go to Home or Design, and in the design I will change this orientation to portrait. So I start my diagram with the initial state. You can see a life insurance contract document called policy is issued when a complete proposal with all the requirement documents is submitted to the underwriting team. The policy proposal form is routed through the branch operations to the underwriting team. With favorable acceptable conditions, the proposal is converted into a policy. The policy is serviced by a policyholder by paying regular premiums on or before the premium due date. This keeps the policy in force or in continuum. In the case the due premiums remain unpaid beyond the due date, the policy is lapsed after a certain grace period. If the premium for a lapsed policy remains unpaid for a long, the policy reaches the paid up state. Both the lapsed or the paid up policy can be revived or reinstated when the policy holder pays all the outstanding premium or installments, along with the applicable interest and policy revival charges. Personal health statement is also submitted as a declaration. Policy once revived becomes a regular policy. A paid up policy gets terminated at the end of the policy period or in event of the death of the policy holder prior to the end of the policy period. If it is a participating policy like endowment plan, policy holder can pledge this policy with the insurance company to take the loan. In this case, the policy is assigned to the insurance company under conditional assignment, and once all the loan amount paid is reassigned to the policy holder. If during the policy continuation, if there is any occurrence of claim like death, claim, the policy benefit amount is paid to the nominee and the policy is terminated. If there is no death claim, the survival benefit is paid to the policy holder. In case the policy holder is absolutely assigned, the assignee is paid total benefit of the policy. So you see, this policy is moving from one state to another state. There are some permanent states. So after a permanent state, only final state can be reached. So we identify the initial states, we identify the transition between states, and then we identify the permanent state. So let's start identifying them. So I give one state as being underwritten. And here you see transition is not the arrow for the transition, or the, if you can see here, this is the notation for the transition between the states, this one, this arrow. So I will utilize the connector, and then from pointer tool I will connect from straight connector, and then now from being underwritten, this policy will go take up some other states. So from being underwritten, I'm just adding the tooltip to this. It can go to other states. So I will mention what those states are. So that policy can become in force. So I'll just add that it becomes in force. So I'll add it here, in force. So a policy which is being underwritten can become in force. I just need to add an arrow or the direction for the arrow. That's what I'm trying to find out. So you see the enforced policy can become lapsed. So there will be a transition between enforced to lapsed. I'll just copy this tool. So from enforce to lapse there is one transition, and as it has been told here, a lapsed policy can be revived or can be put in enforced state again if you make the payment of the premium and the additional interest. So that means this is this arrow. Then what is written, if you read the case, that a lapsed policy can become paid up if the premium remains unpaid for some time. So as an analyst, you see, you need to identify all these states, and this identification will happen when you discuss the domain with your stakeholder or with your client. Paid up, and a paid up policy can also be made active or can also be made in force after payment of certain premiums and interest. So this is the So as you can see, we are quickly able to cover and prepare the diagram. And then these two arrows are superfluous, let me delete them. Then it is written, if an event happens or if the time period is over, then the paid up policy or a lapsed policy or an enforced policy can be terminated or moves to the terminated state. So lapsed policy can become terminated if the time period is over. Same is true for the paid up policy, and an enforced policy can get terminated if the time period is over or if there is a death claim. So a lapse policy can become terminated when the time period of the policy gets over. Paid up policy can get terminated when the time period for the policy is over. Enforced policy can get terminated if there is a death claim or if the time period for the same is over. And Once the policy becomes terminated, it is the permanent state, and after this is this arrow for the final pseudo state. So we attach it here. And then you see the policy which has been declined is also not taken up again. In which phase of business analysis state machine diagram is being drawn? So you see, state machine diagram again will be prepared during the early stages. As and when you will be eliciting your requirements, you will be preparing this diagram. And so I will stop here. So those are composite states. So composite states are those states where you see therein two sub-states can happen at a time. So say you want to join a club. For that club, you make an application. So you are an applicant. So within that applicant state, there can be two sub-states. One state can be that it is pending the legal check, that your legal verification or your antecedents are being verified. And within the same, there can be yet another state that your payment is being processed. So you are an applicant. While you are an applicant, these two internal states are there, and unless your payment is processed and unless your legal antecedents do not come correct, you will not move from applicant to, let's say, a member. So that is the composite state. States can have internal behavior. I have told you about the composite state. When you talk about the state with internal behavior, it is basically sometimes they tell when you move from one state to another. So out there you can mention what is the entry point of the state, what is the exit point of the state. So that is the behavior, and under what circumstances entry and exit will happen. So friends, allow me to close this session, and I hope it has been interesting and it has been fruitful for you. Thank you so much.